Let's like do it.
Let's talk about Gattaca.
Oh my god.
Gattaca?
Oh my god, Gattaca.
Has anybody else seen Gattaca? It's like the
Have you seen
best
it?
movie.
Have you
You
seen
can choose what your baby looks like? That's like so cool.
it?
Brother, sibling,
Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, that's us, talk about movies we loved from our childhood and some we may be discovering for the very first time, centered around a different theme every season.
I'm your
Ah.
brother, Evan Kerna.
And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan. And, this is you. You introduced the movie.
Is it? Okay, well, this
Is it?
week's
Or
movie
I can
is...
do it.
Let's both do it together.
This week's movie
This movie
is
is Gattaca!
Gattaca!
That was a little off, but that's okay. A twisty, turny, noir-inspired 97 film that gave us Maya Hawke. Um,
So this season's theme is 90s sci-fi and fantasy films, obviously. Evan and
classic.
I are huge fans of the genre as well as the time period. And
All the
this
things.
film, all the things, and this film, Gattaca, is how Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman met and then got married and had bebés, one of whom is the fantastic and delightful Maya Hawke.
The Kill Bill bride and the guy from Training Day. What's an iconic name, character name of an Ethan Hawke character? I don't even remember
I don't
any.
even I don't
Sorry,
know.
Ethan
He was
Hawke. Ethan Hawke is always Ethan Hawke to me. Like, and he's
Yeah.
great. I love Ethan. I love the vibe he brings to things. But like, do you remember that episode of Reservation Dogs he's on where he plays
Oh,
Alora's
yeah.
dad, her
Yes.
biological
Estranged
father?
father. Yeah.
I'm just like, you're just being you, dude. Like you're just Ethan
And
Hawke
and he
being
like
this girl's dad. And I
and
love
he
that.
like randomly showed up in The Glass Onion for like 5 minutes to
Oh
shoot
yeah.
like some, I don't know, unknown COVID vaccine into uh oh my god, Daniel Craig's character in The Glass Onion. Benoit
Um,
Blanc's
B-
face.
Benoit Blanc. Benoit
Benoit
Blanc.
Blanc.
Gentleman
Um,
detective.
Gentleman detective. But this week we're
Is
not
that what he
talking
says?
about
No, we're not. We should talk about
no.
detective and murder mysteries because I'm getting
Oh,
really deep into murder mysteries.
yes.
And detective video games. I'm novels. I'm doing a deep
We're in
dive
it.
into murder
Well,
mystery detective stuff because this shit is cool as hell.
Gattaca Gattaca halfway through becomes like a noir detective true crime situation.
Yeah, you could
Storyline
argue.
wise. You
Totally.
could argue.
hmm
But anyway, so just
Wait, one more thing
before
about Ethan Hawke. The Northman
Oh, wait,
doesn't
I
look
have another
like he
thing.
does not belong in that movie. I'm sorry. I love you, Ethan Hawke, but you need to just stay in Austin. You need to stay in Texas. Boyhood, you're great. Training Day, you're believable. You're fish out of water.
Yes.
Northman, I don't buy you as a Viking. I'm sorry.
No.
I was like,
He
what? You need to be smoking a blunt in a backyard in Austin, Texas. Like, I don't
one of
buy this.
one of my favorite Ethan Hawke performances is in a movie that's a Nick Hornby novel adaptation called Juliet Naked. And
Mm.
he plays kind of like a one-hit wonder underground music like
Oh,
musician
musician. Yeah.
and who's had multiple wives and multiple failed marriages and is just sort
hmm
of like a down and out
A
dude,
deadbeat
and he's
musician.
great. Like
hmm
he's great in that film. He like has a lot of heart and a lot of conviction.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a man for the modern era. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. He's a man
Yeah.
for the modern era, I would say.
And
Um,
he gets the Texas vibe down
he
right. There's not
does.
a lot of
He
cool
does.
people in Texas. Well, I don't know. There's cool people in Texas. I don't know every Texas is a huge place. But
It's
he has
huge.
the cool guy Texas archetype sort of down pat in my
Yeah.
opinion. He has that great TED
Like
talk about poetry too, which is nice.
Yeah, he's also the villain in Moon Knight, the Marvel TV show.
Oh, Moon
He's like
Knight. Yes.
Moon Knight, yes. Um,
Again, I just don't buy him as a villain, man. Like every time I see Ethan Hawke, I'm like, I want to chill.
really?
I want to hang out with this guy. I haven't seen Moon Knight, so I don't know. Maybe he's really good as a
Oh,
villain.
he's a good villain in it. He's a good
Hmm.
villain in Moon
Cool.
Knight. But
I could
anyway,
dig that
so why are we talking about Ethan Hawke? Oh, because we're talking about the
because
film
we're talking about
Gattaca.
Gattaca. Yeah, 1997
Obviously.
science fiction film directed by Andrew Niccol.
Yes, obviously. So this for me, this was a first time watch. I'd never seen this film before because it came out when I was 7 and I was not the target audience for it
Yeah.
as
Mhm.
a 7-year-old. Have
Yeah.
you seen Gattaca before? Have you seen
I've
it
seen
before?
it before, but honestly, it was from recently, like within the last 5 years. I'd watched it for the first
Okay.
time, like a while ago. But yeah, I didn't see it growing up as a kid. It it had that patina of like an adult movie when you're a kid, but
Mm,
looking back on it now, it's like very tame, all things considered,
yeah, yeah,
like
for
for
sure.
a quote unquote
Well,
adult movie.
exactly. Yeah, it's like it got an R rating because of well, I actually don't know what rating it has, but like it's a 90s, it's a late
Ooh,
90s film.
yeah.
Like,
What is it rated? Let's find out.
I
Thank you,
mean,
IMDb on the fly.
let's do this.
Or wait, that's not the first one that comes up. The Wikipedia article comes up first. Popular 7.7 out of 10 on
Woo, pretty
IMDb.
good.
Way to go. Good job. Um, I was a big fan of all the where IMDb show me where the rating is. What the hell? Oh, PG. This should be like the first thing. Okay,
The
PG
first
13
thing.
for brief violent images, language, and some sexuality. Hmm.
We'll talk about that some sexuality later. I think both of us clocked it. But okay, cool. So we
I know. I
don't
want to talk
have
about the kiss.
I oh my god, me too. We'll get there in a second. But anyway, so we'll just do a little so we don't so yeah, this is the first time like kind of watching it as adults,
Yeah,
no
I don't
prior
have a special
anything.
connection with this movie beyond that
No.
it's science fiction from an era that I admired
Yeah.
science fiction from.
Yeah, so we'll do a little quick recap from our robot overlords at ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Just like broad strokes, what is this film about? So yeah, 1997. It's a science fiction film. It's directed by Andrew Niccol, who actually this is a first time writer director piece of
Oh, yeah, I didn't
media.
think I'd recognized his name from, like, any movies
Yeah,
previous to
no, so
'97.
he wrote it and directed it, which impressive. You always get props for that.
Mhm,
Um, so yes, so we okay, so this film is set in kind of a near future from 1997, so like
mhm,
I don't know, the year 2000, um, where basically like genetic engineering has skyrocketed. That technology is everywhere and very pervasive, and it basically determines your genetic makeup determines your entire life's prospects basically. um you know, as soon as you're born you get sort of
mhm,
genetically screened for, you have a this percent chance of heart attack, you have a this percent chance of whatever, and so you're kind of put
yeah.
into these different categories. So
Honestly, it
the
would be
main
super useful to have people be like,
bro
"You're 67% likely to be manic depressive and 89% likely to have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder." Like, I think people would love that now.
I
It's
mean,
bad, it's bad, but
it's bad.
also, like, wouldn't it be nice to know early? Eugenics,
I mean, it
not so great, but
that's okay. I mean, it would be nice to know that stuff, but only if we didn't then use it to, like, categorize people really
right.
in a really rough way.
There's
But
the
anyway, so
rub.
this there's the rub. So the story follows this guy, Ethan Hawke, Vincent Freeman, um, and he
Vincent
is what his
Freeman. Could you come up
I
with a more obvious screenwriter name? Anyway, I'll stop
look,
interrupting, but my god.
I also have some notes on the writing, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So he is born in what's called a quote unquote faith birth, i.e., he is not genetically modified pre birth. He is born naturally and he is deemed an invalid by society because he has a genetic heart condition. He has really bad eyesight. He has these high percentage chances of having attention deficit disorder, schizophrenia, manic depression, etc. So basically, like from a genetic standpoint, a total dud um, in the society's eyes, because one half of this podcast is a deeply mentally ill and neurodivergent human being. So we value those kinds of people.
I'm
Um,
right here.
oh, true, true.
Unbelievable.
Not one half, the full thing. So basically, from a young age, Vincent, this kid, is a total nerd and like falls in love with space and dreams of being an astronaut. He also has a brother who is genetically designed, I guess, for lack of a better term. So he has a younger brother who's like smarter or like faster and stronger and
Mhm.
more, worthy of
It's just
societal
better.
attention. Just
Yeah.
better, just better in
And
general.
in true Hollywood
Um,
fashion, they're both played by really hot dudes, but one of them has glasses.
it's so dumb. Whatever. It's fine. So Vincent, to achieve his life's goal, his life's purpose of space, he assumes the identity of a genetically superior individual, Jerome, who's played by Jude Law. Brilliant
Mhm,
performance. And basically, they use all of this advanced slash not advanced at all technology to essentially trick the system into making Vincent take on Jerome's identity so that he can kind of pass muster as this genetically superior person and he can
mhm.
get a job at a undisclosed what they actually do company called Gattaca.
It
They
seems
do
as though
space.
it
They do
seems as though
space.
they do space. I think that
They
they
do
are
space.
calculating trajectories for the rockets that take off to moons, which I'm assuming are colonizing
So
things, or maybe they just go there to look around, like, there's
I
a
it's
few
okay.
interestingly undefined things in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, so Gattaca is this company and Gattaca, oh my god, Gattaca is the DNA sequencing letters GATC. That's where the name Gattaca comes from.
Mhm.
Look,
I
they're
felt
so
very
fancy.
smart figuring that out as soon as, like, "Oh, this movie's about genes. Oh, good, 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 good."
I felt smart when the opening title, like the credits were coming on, and all of the G's, A's, T's, and C's in people's names were sans serif font, and the rest of it was serif font. And I was like,
Oh, I didn't catch that. That's cool.
oh, that's where I saw it because I was like, GATC again and again and again. And then I was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's genetic sequencing letters. Anyway, so
Fun
Gattaca
fact,
does
did you know that all the brands from the Old West, that were Spanish have serifs on them and, white people brands do not? I don't know where I learned that.
what?
I
Like
was
brand
learning
identity?
Yeah, like, that you would brand cattle with,
Oh, you would brand cattle with.
span
I thought you were
span
talking about like
Oh, no,
marketing.
no, no, like, in the olden days, like, all the Spanish, vaqueros and cowboys who were in California would brand their cat and they all had
Oh,
serifs on
interesting.
them. I don't know why, but I heard that fact recently,
Huh.
Spanish people are Westerners, but, Mexican,
Yes.
cowboys would, brand their cattle with serifs, and then the brands that came after that did not have serifs on them, with the white people that came later, so I don't know why that
Huh.
is, but it's a fun fact I learned recently.
I love fun facts about the
Font
Old
geeks.
West.
We should just start another podcast
Oh,
just about
called
font
font geeks.
geekery. That'd be fun. I'd
I
love to get I've never
yes.
really studied it, but I'd love to learn more, and you
Oh
could teach
boy.
me, and I could do more research anyway.
I have.
Podcast ideas.
I know a lot about fonts. It's always great to talk about fonts in relation to a sci-fi film. So Gattaca is this company that does space.
Right.
They
Space company.
send they send rockets to Titan, which is a moon of Jupiter or
Moon of
something.
Saturn.
Saturn. we don't really know why they send people there, and it's unclear why Titan is important, but also, like, is
It's
it
just
important to
important
know?
because it gets people off the planet Earth, which sucks these days because everybody is discriminating and not racist, genist,
They're
genist,
eugenicists.
right?
Um, yes. So
Exactly.
anyway, so basically it's this the whole movie is about Vincent, Ethan Hawke, kind of gaming the system essentially to live up to his potential, his intellectual potential, as opposed to
Hmm.
his genetic physical potential, which is non-existent,
Hmm.
in order to get to space and kind of all of the extreme lengths that he goes to achieve that.
Yeah.
There's also a murder plot through this. Like, one of the directors at Gattaca gets like brained in the head with a keyboard. There's
Those
also a
keyboards
romance.
do not look hefty enough to murder a person in the head.
I
Like
think,
that keyboard like made it through his
yeah,
skull. I
like,
don't buy it.
I mean, unless it's like a titanium keyboard that weighs like 25
Yeah,
pounds.
steel keyboard. At Gattaca, we have the best space keyboards.
Yes, the only way to get to space is with, you know, tungsten carbide
Hey,
keyboard.
if they use them in the rocket ships, no, it doesn't matter how much you weigh in space. You're weightless, baby.
True, true. But yeah, and then
But
there's
yes,
also like a
there's a love.
romance.
Hmm.
There's a love story like plot through it. So I think, just we'll get more into the specifics, but I think overall, um, this film does somewhat suffer from having a little bit too much sauce on the pasta, if you
Hmm.
want to put it that way. Of like, there's a
I.
lot of plot,
Hmm.
um, and some of those plots are perhaps not necessary. Like, the romance plot doesn't really need to be there. I would say it doesn't
Knowing that
add
it's
anything.
knowing that it's this filmmaker's first feature film makes a lot of sense.
Mm,
Like
it
I would do
does.
the
It
same
does.
thing if I was making a feature film. I'd be like, I don't know if I'm ever going to make another one of these. Like I got to throw everything at it. I got to have
Yes.
everything I want to have in it. I really like that movie. Did you ever see Dope?
No.
Dope is really good. It's another sort of like first feature film. I think the basic premise is that it's like a young guy in East LA. I don't remember. I think it's set out here. Anyway, he's like a bookish, like a bookworm kind of guy, but he
Mhm.
needs money quick, so he becomes a dope dealer for a day. Um, but
Mm,
it's one of those, yeah, it's one of those movies where it's like it feels like you were putting everything you had, no matter whether
right.
it was germane to the plot, into this movie because it
Yes.
was every cool idea you've ever had, you like throw into it because you're like, this is it. Like this goes in, and a
Yeah.
little bit this movie kind of feels like that once it kind of gets going at the middle of the second act. You're like, this feels like they're kind
Yeah.
of putting everything. And maybe the romance was like a studio note too, that
I
definitely
was
seems like the kind of
wondering,
thing where they'd be like, you need a woman. Like, well, okay.
yeah, I definitely I think that it is impressive that this is a first-time writer-director, and that
Yeah.
so much of the, like, conceptual integrity came through to the
Yeah.
film,
No,
and
for sure.
it is also, I do feel a little like the romance was a studio note,
Mhm.
um, because it is a flat character. Even though it is played by the Irene, the one woman in this film is played by Uma Thurman, who is a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
But her character is just like pretty flat. Like, there's not a lot there. There's not a
Yeah.
lot really that there's nothing about the romance really that furthers the plot. But anyway, so
Yeah, she's
um
like, "I like you because you are you." Does she also did I misinterpret this? Is she also, like, kind of not supposed to be in the system or something? Is she also kind of, like, not
there's
totally genetically superior like everybody else? I feel like she was
Yeah,
also
so
kind of like
she's, like, on the edge of where I think she is somebody that was, like, kind of genetically engineered, but even then she has also, like, has a heart defect of some type. So
yeah.
she's sort of a, like, almost perfect. So while she is able to work at Gattaca, right? Like she can pass the genetic screening test that is the
Hmm.
interview. Like doing a DNA test is your only interview to work at this company, which
Great. Love it.
seemingly you would need a lot of aerospace knowledge to work at. They like do a DNA test and it's like that is your interview. You can
You're an
work here
astronaut
now.
now.
Like what? Okay.
Okay. Maybe that's why they're doing all, maybe that's why their work is the space trajectories. They're like, you're going to need to know this when you're an
You need
astronaut.
to you need to learn it. Like
You
now
need
you
to
can
learn.
start learning.
Did you look at any of the like text inputs on the side that
Yes.
is ostensibly what it's just fucking gibberish. It's just
It
like
just doesn't.
9EYGTOTM M : parenthesis
It's like
XY.
not like it doesn't even look like you know how sometimes they'll
They
use
didn't make
like
it look cool like the Matrix. Like, just make
no.
some kind of cool language up or something. It's just like a fucking like a super duper strong It's like the passwords that the browsers
Google.
suggest to you that are like
Yeah,
8 million characters long that you'll never
right.
remember.
Exactly.
It's
And
like a
it's
human being is putting these in. I don't know.
I don't understand. I don't understand. Um, but yeah, so okay, Gattaca, space, etc. So basically, we open on this film, and like Ethan Hawke is being sexy and doing weird stuff, and you don't know why. Like scrubbing off, he's like scrubbing his skin and his hair, and then he's like making
He is scrubbing
little
that bod.
he is scrubbing it. He's making little like fingerprint things that have little blood capsule, like little bits of blood blister things in them. He's
Yeah.
like putting
Throwing weird
like
contacts in his eyes.
putting weird contacts in his eyes, like grabbing like things of pee off, like bags of pee off of a thing, and like putting them on his leg. Um, like bags of pee. He's not just like covering himself in piss. It's a different film. That's a
Just
more
dousing himself in piss.
that's a more
I'm not being an
niche
astronaut.
piss everywhere. Um,
uh, I watched that movie. It's like a Monty Python sketch.
but yeah, so
Uh,
we open on him doing all these weird things and we don't know why. And I initially was like, is he a robot? Like, what?
yeah, what's going
So
on?
what's doing all this thing? And then we like get to Gattaca, which is this big, like futuristic office, and it's just these like I don't know why every single office in a sci-fi film is just individual little teeny pods that people sit in a in a big I mean, like I guess that's what offices are. They're little cubes of people where they work. But this is just like always at another level. Like, where's your supply closet? Where are the printers? Like,
Where
do
do
you
the
ever have
janitors
coffee?
go to take care of their mops? I don't.
I don't know. I don't understand. It's just like a big room, and we like, ooh, and we see him typing. We see Vincent, who everyone
Mhm.
is calling Jerome. We see him like tippity tappity
Jerome.
typing, and everybody's like, "You haven't had a single problem ever, and you're amazing." But like, you have to go get tested because you're going to be on the next space mission, and
Yeah. And
then
he's like,
get the
I know.
introduction of the
I'm
world's
a
least
white guy
professional
in the
doctor
90s.
on the face of this earth. um, who oh wait, you froze for just a second. Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. So Jerome has to go like do it's very normalized in this world to do like, prick your finger to get into the building because that is your like genetic, marker that like, yes, I can go in this building. I work here and like you regularly get like drug tests and screening and everything like you have your blood drawn and you have like urine tests and stuff. So this happens regularly, so that's why we find out when Vincent was leaving the house earlier, he like strapped a pea satchel, I don't know,
Yeah,
to his
they
leg.
reveal the reason why he's doing these intriguing things pretty well. It's a good first few pages of a screenplay. It's intriguing. You don't
Yeah.
know what's going on. You're like, this is weird. Where are we? And
Yeah. It's a great
the
opening.
visual language gives you a pretty good idea of like the
Yeah.
what the visual identity of this movie is going to be.
Yeah, like kind of it situates you in the world pretty quickly. Um And basically, this doctor, this is important, I swear, for later. This doctor is like, "Oh, Jerome, you never have a problem peeing. Like, got a nice piece of equipment there, son. Your parents really went all out for you." And I was like, "What the fuck? Are you
This
commenting on the
is
size of this man's dick?" What?
This is incredible, okay? There is a critique of capitalism, buried into this movie because this doctor is basically saying, so genetically, superior, genetically created people are basically the elite, right? They are the rich, if you
Yeah.
will, so to speak. They get
Yes.
all of the opportunities.
Privilege
I feel
and
like this doctor is
opportunity.
basically saying, and credit to my buddy Nick Gonzalez who pointed this out, it's like poor people have big dicks and rich people don't. It's like they can do everything except give themselves big dicks. That would be the first thing that
Insane.
you tried to do. But I'm just sort of like, yeah,
I
man, like these people,
Yeah.
they gotta work hard. They got big dick energy. Ethan Hawke is like, I don't take nothing for granted. Ugh.
Yeah. Look at my massive fucking hog.
Yeah.
Um, like, so anyway, so this fucking
It's a
unprofessional ass
critique of
doctor.
capitalism. It's a critique of capitalism wrapped in a dick joke, wrapped in completely non-PC, borderline workplace
Negligent.
harassment of the
Yeah,
90s. It's awesome. It's
it
just like,
really
this
hits
is
it
a
on all
choice.
it really hits it on all cylinders.
Yeah.
So at this point, kind of we've got this really cool setup. We're immersing ourselves in the world. It's kind of doing the cool thing that sci-fi does of showing, not telling, and then they just go, and now we're going to do a voiceover that explains every single thing about this world and about this
Right.
character.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm
I don't know how
always
else you would do it, but, like, it was a
I
it was a big thing in the '90s to just
it
have
was.
people narrating the story to you, you know?
It was, and I would say, like, it is definitely a thing of the '90s,
Mhm.
and I don't mind voiceovers, like, Merlin is a great example of, like, a voiceover that is used well, right?
It's
That
used
is, like,
sparingly, you
it's
know?
used sparingly and it's used well, and it's kind of
Well,
connecting dots a little bit as opposed to just, like, "Here is everything."
here's to me where the problem lies, and I can cover this in a different section where we specifically talk about the screenwriting if we
Mm,
want to. But like to me, the screenplay it's really good cause and effect plot story. Like this is difficult
mm,
stuff to get
yes,
down, it's tough to
yes,
sort of like get all the pieces to work together. So like a jigsaw puzzle, this thing is, connecting, right? It's like all the pieces make sense and one thing leads to another and the cause and effect, and
mhm,
there's actually a pretty good twist which we'll
yes.
get to later. um oh shit, what were we just talking about? It was
We were
about
talking
the
about voiceovers.
voiceovers. um Voiceovers, I think, work when you are when the visuals and the audio are
Mm,
making you connect dots. When they're different, they're like almost
yes,
contradictory
yes,
isn't the word I'm looking for, but like, there's got to be like a writing work term for this. But
for sure.
like, it's like dramatic irony, right? Like, you don't like
Mm,
when the voiceover is describing something you're seeing on film, it's like that's double the information. I don't need that. But when the
yeah,
voiceover is implying something that is counterintuitive to the thing that you're seeing on
mm,
screen. That's when it gets interesting. That's when you as a viewer have to piece
yes,
the this is kind of like where I think this is where the art of like cartooning comes in very well for people because it's like that is like at the heart of like,
mm.
can you get a visual and words that are describing the same scene, but the words give different context to the image, like,
Yes, and I think
and this
that's
movie
why.
doesn't do that often. It's kind of like just telling you what you're looking at, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it and the c so we kind of get this, like, pretty lengthy voiceover of this guy Vincent being like, "Everybody thinks my name is Jerome, but, like, my name is actually Vincent, and, like, I was born a this way," and, like, just fully does exposition, like, beat by beat with
Yeah.
visuals of, "Here's
I
my
was
family," and
born I was
I was
conceived
born
in a
and
car in Detroit.
right, and it's
Did you clock that
very
the mom is holding like a rosary? Is like she gives birth to like normal son Ethan Hawke? I was like,
oh, really? Oh, man.
mhm. Yeah,
That's loaded imagery.
yeah.
Um, but it just yeah, this voiceover feels a bit like a cop out. Like you're having to not you're showing and telling at the same
Hmm.
time,
Yeah,
and you're showing what you're telling and you're telling what you're showing a little bit, and it just is a little clunky and a little like it lacks a certain amount of finesse. It's not
I would
bad
agree.
necessarily, but it just
Yeah,
doesn't have that like fully polished everything about it.
yeah.
So
This
yeah,
is why
we
it's a 7.7 on IMDb.
yes. So we kind of learn all of the backstory of Vincent and being a sick kid, and we also interestingly get a black doctor who is like wholeheartedly endorsing eugenics to Vincent's
Oh
parents.
my god, when he says here you want fair skin. Ha. I was like, I hope the actor added that. It's
I know.
just
I'm
like
like,
I
got it.
really liked that scene. I really liked that doctor being in this world. I felt like that actor brought a lot to that role. He's like,
Yes.
I don't know, just like, of course you want a white baby. You all do.
You silly idiots. They can't handle the sun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But yeah, so it's a very this whole film centers around like eugenic principles really of
Yeah. Yeah, not
we
that the movie itself is endorsing it, but it is like, what
it's
would
not.
happen if this was the world that we
Yeah.
lived in, obviously.
Yeah, and it's kind of couching it in the like which I think is always how eugenics kind of couches things is like, well, don't you just want the best? Don't you just want the best version of a kid?
Mhm.
Like, don't
Yeah.
and obviously this is not saying that like there's anything wrong with like genetic screening for your kids, obviously, like and lots of a lot of my friends that have had children recently, like with very good reason they do genetic testing in
Right.
utero or whatever,
Mhm.
and there is a very good there's a very good point to that. There's a reason that we do that. But this kind of taking it one step farther and really letting science guide the types of humans that we have, and
Yeah.
like that inevitably leads to, for example, if we had these eugenic principles, we wouldn't have someone like Stephen Hawking, right? Like we would only be looking at the physical attributes and the physical limitations as opposed to mental, emotional contributions that these people, intellectual capabilities these people can have, these effects they can have on society. Anyway, eugenics
Yeah.
sucks and I hate it.
It feels like the movie is trying to kind of make that point with Jude Law's character, actual
Hmm.
Jerome, and being like, you can't guess fate. Like he's a genetically
Yeah,
blah 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 person, but he was like, suicidal and now can't
yeah,
walk or whatever. So
yeah, and it's
yeah,
just like
interesting.
it's an interesting thing, but that's sort of a theme throughout it. Um, but essentially through this we learn, Vincent, because he is sort of this like quote unquote invalid, disappointing person, like being as a child, like as a tiny child, his parents have another son who is kind of like bioengineered. And the two kids, we get them growing up together. There's some amount of sibling rivalry, but there seems to be a lot of love there.
Guess
But
what? One of them is just better at everything else than the other one.
yeah, weird. I don't know, Evan, maybe you can speak to what it's like being the older child and having a genetically superior younger sibling. I don't know.
You
I don't
know,
know.
I got a lot
Just
to say on this subject.
like it's not true at all in our family, and that I am in fact intensely genetically inferior.
I'm still looking forward to our side series, My Beautiful Fucked Up Body, in which you
uh,
describe all of your physical ailments, but
oh
like a
my,
comedy routine.
like a comedy routine.
Everybody else
I
seems
don't
to think it would be like a horror show. I seem to
no
think it
one
would be funny.
only
We
you
gotta
and
get the pitch
I.
deck down. We gotta structure
It
this
is
pitch deck for people to get it.
genuinely. everybody else I've ever described this to is like, yeah, my brother and I want to do a series of me doing like essentially some kind of stand-up comedy routine-ish that's just about like all of the many like horrible medical procedures I've had done and testing and physical problems that I have. It'll be really funny. And like my brother and I think it's a hilarious idea and we really want to do it. And everybody is like, does your brother hate you? Like, why would he think that's funny? And I'm like, I don't think you're getting it. I'll describe it again. So,
And
and
then you
they're
say
like,
the same things and they're like, it sounds worse the second time.
exactly. They're like, not better. You're not making it better. Um,
They don't
but yeah,
they
so
don't
these
get
brothers
it.
grow
They
up
don't
together,
understand.
right?
You
They
just
have
gotta
this
make the
weird thing
thing.
where they swim out. They like swim out into the ocean, and like Vincent has a bad heart or something, and so he's always giving up. This one time he doesn't give up, and that like rewrites their whole sibling dynamic somehow. I don't know. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Oh, before we glance over this part, because it's
Oh
really
yeah.
not all that interesting, but I do really like that a film making choice they make in this, which is to cast the teenage versions of
Oh
them
yes.
as different characters, which I realize is actually there's a very smart reason for it because you actually need to because of a reveal that happens later. But like I liked just that because like typically when I see movies where they're like, I was a kid, blah blah blah, and then it's like, and then I turned 17, and it's like Robert De Niro playing 17-year-old him, and then he
Right.
plays him from like 17 to 35, just like I don't.
I don't
Yes,
get it.
you are the same person, but like in filmmaker language, it's just like you look so different from those ages. I just
Yeah.
prefer it when they actually cast a different person as the teenage version of a person because it always feels like in
Yes.
movies that do that, and it would be like, look, it's Ethan Hawke now. You get to see Ethan Hawke as opposed to like it's the character. So that was a good
It's the
choice. I
character.
like that they
Yeah.
did it, and like I said, there's
Yeah.
actually a very smart reason for it because of things that happen down the
Yes.
line.
Well, and it's like it is that thing of like have the balls and conviction to like be the crown and just cast different actors
Yeah.
for all the different life stages of your entire cast and just be
Yeah.
like, fuck it, you
Oh,
figure it
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so basically brother is like, you know, all of the hopes and dreams of his parents and more, but Vincent is this like nerdy kid who loves space. Big same Vincent. But he is just like Vincent becomes this like single-minded, like Vincent heart space, space is goal, space is best, space is where Vincent is wants to
Right.
be. That is the whole his space is the love of his life. Um,
Never
and
been with a lady. Loves space too much.
love space too much. So then as an adult, so we see now Vincent as an adult and we kind of get like he worked at Gattaca as a cleaning person because he was like this undesirable and that was the only way he could get close to the
Oh yeah.
capital S
I
space
love
TM work of
yeah.
Gattaca.
I love his supervisor, his janitorial soup. He's like,
Yeah.
"You looking up at space? He's like looking up at the rockets. He's like, "You like space? I'll show you space. Clean this space right here." He's like points to a little corner. I'm just like, what a dick.
What a dick. I also love that at that
Here's
point
your
of like
space. Clean it up. I
clean
forget
it
what the
up.
real line is. It's better than that, but it made me
But
laugh.
there's also this part where in the voiceover Vincent is like we had moved beyond like racial discrimination. We had other means of saying who needed what and I was like but there are still only like one black person in this whole film though. Right? Like everybody's still white,
don't
right?
you
We get
don't
that?
you don't you just love how white people in the 90s always wanted to make movies about white people being oppressed and discriminated against? Like, we came up with this reason that like white people are like the
Oh,
inferior ones and like we have it hard too. It's very
oh,
funny.
it's so hard in our society. And
Like,
it's like, no, it's not. Calm down.
yeah.
It's yeah,
But
it's
it's just
absurd.
but
It's
it's
absurd.
like this weird like fantasy of like wanting to be like downtrodden or wanting to be
Mhm.
like quote unquote down with the people. That's just like, look, the concept of the movie is fine, but like but yeah, it's also funny because it's a movie made in 1997 and yes, They
Yeah.
will put, you know, there are black people at the keyboards there, but like it really is that. It's like the most 90s thing. It's like racial
Yeah.
discrimination wasn't a thing, but then it's like no Indian people, no Asian people, one black person in the background, one black person playing the guy, and nobody if
Right.
you wanted to make the point that it is genetic modified superiority
Superiority. Yeah.
that is the discrimination in this world, then you would have had a more diverse cast of people who were doing that. Although maybe part of the
Right.
critique is underlying critique is that like the people who had the money were the white people, so they like genetically made
Right.
more blue-eyed white people, so maybe they thought about that, but it feels like the point, if that's the point, then they
It
would
could have
have
been
cast the movie a little differently.
exactly. Yes, I agree with that. And so now Vincent, he's an adult, and he is like, and then I undertook like the most taboo bad thing I could have done, and I called motherfucking Tony Shalhoub.
uh
Um,
Another national
icon,
treasure. Yeah, Monk,
na-
the
national
best.
treasure,
Well,
icon.
second
Yes.
second best TV detective. Columbo,
Mm,
Monk. I don't know any others.
Kate Winslet in Mayor of Easttown. God, she's such a
Sure.
bitch. I love her.
Yeah.
Um,
Mayor. I keep thinking of it in my head as Mayor, Mer, of
as
Easttown
what?
because she reminds me of you.
Oh, yeah. No, she does. She's like a mean, salty alcoholic who, like, does not have time for your bullshit.
Mean, salty alcoholic. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, basically, Tony Shalhoub is, like, this black market fix-it guy, and he is, like, a broker between people who want to sell their genetic identity to someone. So he kind of matches up somebody that has like perfect genetics who looks similar to someone who is one of these like invalid, quote unquote, invalid people,
Mhm.
and then like matches them up so they can kind of switch lives for monetary gain, right?
Right.
Um, and so now we meet Jerome, Jude Law, played by Jude Law, who is my favorite part of this entire film. I wish he was in more of this film. I wish he was in every scene. I
He
love him. He is
he
so
actually
good.
brings some like soul to the proceedings.
Yes. Yes.
He actually
He
brings some kind of like gravitas isn't the word. He just actually feels like a living flesh and blood human who like is
yes.
angry and sad.
So the thing with this guy, the thing with Jerome is that he is like a 10 out of 10 human specimen, right? Like the peak of everything. The peak of everything that society says you should be. But womp womp, he was in a car accident, like he was hit by a car and he broke his back. And so now he's in a wheelchair and basically I mean, apparently, like, wheelchair ramps don't exist in this world, and people who are in wheelchairs can't be in society, which is, like, fucked in its own way. Because I was like, "Ableism is
when
well and alive."
when everybody can when all the rich people can be genetically superior, why do they need ramps of any kind? They're like they never need them. They're going to keep
You
on
never need
walking
it.
until they're 98 years old.
Yeah, it'd be fine. So, basically, Jerome and Vincent then start undertake this process of switching lives, right? So, Vincent is, like, takes his glasses off and looks exactly like Jude Law. Just kidding. It's still Ethan Hawke. Um, but like takes his
They
glasses
do
off,
some
whatever.
good they do some good work to, like, explain, like, "I don't look
Yeah,
anything like him." He's like, "When was the last time people ever looked at an ID photo?" Like, all they
yeah, and like
care about is the blood that you're gonna give them that
right,
determines whether you're whatever. I was like,
and it
"Okay, like,
is
that's a good, world building, like,
yeah,
explanation to
and
throw in there."
you do get the lengths to which not just Vincent but also Jerome is going to make this happen, right? In terms of like all of the things that Vincent now has to learn and do in terms of like having little vials of Jerome's like skin and hair so that if there is genetic sampling, it's shows up
Oh,
as
and then
Jerome, and having his
yeah,
blood and having like all and like everything that Jerome is doing in
it's a
terms of like,
whole situation. And yeah, he Vincent goes the extra mile of increasing his height by a few inches by going through a
oh
very
yeah,
painful like leg extending procedure. I've heard uh, uh, um, I'm blanking on the vocabulary word. I've heard from people who watched this movie as kids who were like short in middle school watching this and
yeah.
being like, wait, you can do that? Is that a thing I can do? I want that. And I don't want to be this short. It's not real. You can't do that. As far as I
Wait,
know,
no, uh, uh, uh,
can you
no.
extend your shin bones?
I knew a guy. I knew a guy when I was 19, 20, and I was like a shiftless layabout in and around Sonoma County
Hmm.
who had that procedure done. Like he had a leg lengthening procedure done. And
What the
I
fuck?
think it was partially because I think there was some amount of like genetic dwarfism or something. Um, but when I first met him, he was in like a lower body, like full body cast, like waist down. And
No
over the
way.
next couple of years, yeah, and over the next couple of years, it would be like he was in, different kinds of casts and boots, and then he did physical therapy, and then he like was walking with a cane, and then like he was totally
Wow.
done with everything.
And he
Yeah.
did
And
it
I mean,
because
I
he
know
wanted to be a few inches taller.
apparently, yeah, I mean, it was like you were gonna be 5'5", but now you're 5'7". So I don't know. I mean, maybe
Wow.
that's really important to some people.
How about that?
Obviously,
Wow.
they're whatever, but it's real. And
I
I mean,
know
I
it
know
was
it's
a
like it's a
because of this movie, I know it was a fantasy that some of my friends have had that they've
yeah,
described to me in casual conversations when Gattaca comes up in casual conversation.
yes, yes. I mean, anyway, but I also would just like to say, so right, like it's not just a quick flip of like, cool, and we just swap our ID cards and it's done. Like both of these people have to make like a really intense commitment to one another, right? Like
Right.
they're making essentially a lifelong commitment with the purpose of at the end of this, Vincent will then be able to go work at Gattaca and fulfill his dream of space. And
Space.
just a note on
I
space,
fulfilled my
just
space dream.
my
I'm doing
space dream.
space. Don't I love space so
But just
much?
just to like talk about what you said about Jude Law, he is really the only character in this film that is like living and breathing. He is this perfect English aristocratic person. He plays this role like with the exact right amount of humor, condescension, vulnerability, anger, frustration, and just like a whiskey
Yeah.
soaked
He's
sadness.
acting, yeah.
He is, and it's so great. And
I don't
he
wanna
like,
bag on this movie too much. It's not that bad, but there's just things that just make it not quite kicked into
they
100.
just
But
don't,
Jude Law is one of the good things.
Jude Law really is like, he is a delightful character. He's obviously broken emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever, has come to this kind of low point in his life. Um, but yeah, he's a great character and he does a really wonderful job acting in this role and just like the writing for him I think is better. I don't know. I just really
Characters who are
I love
trying
this
to do
movie.
bad things are always a little bit more fun to or that are broken, quote unquote broken. I mean, it's a bad word. Probably shouldn't use broken for this kind of thing. But like people who have problems, internal struggles
Mhm.
and things like that are it's just more interesting to write and to play, like
Well, and it's interesting though too because like seemingly Vincent also has that internal struggle, right? Like he knows that he is not genetically kind of cut out for this world, but all that he wants to do is go to space. He has this like driving ambition, but that doesn't that like internal conflict and that internal struggle does not come through the same way as it does with Jerome's character, um,
Do you
which
think
is
that
interesting.
there are actual things that a genetically superior person in this world actually
Mm.
needs to be an like
They don't even need a
like Vincent
spacesuit, my
like
man,
Vincent cannot see without
at
contacts, and,
all.
like, they don't let blind people fly planes, so, like, does he get up into space at the end of this movie and just fuck the whole mission up and, like, crash the rocket into the moon? Like, is there an actual
Okay,
reason these people are the astronauts? And he's just like,
okay, so I had that.
"Whoopsie, boo, I couldn't see shit. Now I'm on the fucking flight. Oops, I've like
So,
killed everyone on board."
so I actually had the same thought because I was like, Vincent, your heart still doesn't work. What happens when you get into space and have a heart attack,
Yeah,
my
he's like,
friend?
"I made it.
Like,
Ah, I'm dead."
like,
Good job.
okay, fucking ding dong, smart aerospace man can't think about human biology.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, so like at this point, Vincent slash Jerome, right? Everyone thinks he's Jerome. It's actually Vincent. He's a space engineer at Gattaca. And then Uma Thurman is there. And we don't really know why she's there. And we don't really know what she does, but she's very
Just
beautiful.
she's just like lovey-dovey, lovey person. She's like, "Ah, you look, I got the blonde hair, and I like to look at the guy, and I think, oh, I may be kind of cute. Maybe I'll go take him out
Yeah,
for
and it's
dinner or
like
something."
cute and stuff. And then murder. There is a
Oh
murder
yes, there was murder.
of there is murder. And the director of a space mission is, as I said, brained with a keyboard, and then like it becomes a crime noir drama of like scrub this place head to toe, find all the DNA on the scene, and importantly, one of Vincent's like eyelashes or something has fallen, and
Right.
because of that, because it's actually like Vincent's genetic material, they scan it and they're like, "Oh my god, there is someone in this building that does not belong here, who is an invalid, who like blah blah blah, like should not be here. Obviously, this person that no one has heard or seen from in years, who yes used to be a cleaning person here, um, who has no other seeming connection to Gattaca, must be the murder suspect, not the person with a very clear cut motive for murder, who is
Yeah,
this like other director who everybody's like, well, it couldn't be you, sir. And it's like,
yeah.
no, but he actually gets something out of this guy dying. Like,
The
what?
detectives really screwed the pooch on this one. They were like, "I think we need to look at people who don't deserve to be here because fucking nobody who is an elite, genetically superior person could possibly do anything wrong. It must be the janitor." It's like, oh, wait, maybe it was actually the fucking other guy who is a
Yes,
big, rich piece of elite shit.
garbage. And like, but also we do get delighted by Alan Alda being a noir esque detective who is very fun.
Making an
Um,
attempt at bringing some levity to things.
an attempt. And then there's also this like other detective guy who's this like hot young guy who's like, we need to be doing this. And he and Alan Alda are like having differences of opinions. And oh
Yeah.
no, like it's basically this is when it's like now it's a true crime
You
movie.
know, Alan Alda's detective character made me wonder, is like a Brooklyn accent a thing that you genetically determine at birth? They're like, "I want my kid to be from Jersey."
I
Like,
want
I
my
want
kid
them
to
to
be
be
from the
born I
Bronx.
want them to be born in Modesto, but I want them to have a Bronx accent. I don't know,
I
maybe that's a thing that you can determine in this world.
I think it would be super fun if we could do that. I mean, Uma Thurman's like kind of rocking a interesting transatlantic esque accent through a lot of this. So
Yeah. She
um
seems like she's trying really hard to act in this movie.
I mean, to be fair, they basically were like, here is a character with the personality of a cardboard box. Go make it interesting.
I
She's
know. I give all my props to the female actresses that have to bring something to completely cardboard characters. I felt like that with Emma Stone in La La Land. I was like, wow, she's a
oh
really good
man,
actress because this character is paper thin and
this
I
character
actually
is
feel something for her. So good job, Emma Stone and Uma
yes,
Thurman for bringing something to
for
this
figuring
person.
something.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's also really funny because like every time they scan people's like DNA or whatever, you get a little like 90s like PDA version kind of like a little image of them. And on that, based on that graphic, yeah,
PDA?
like a personal what they called like blackberries, you know, like in the early 2000s, like the blackberries
Oh,
that you
okay.
could
I
get
always
that
I
had
always
like
remember
kind of
PDA as
shaped.
being personal, public displays of affection, so I was just like,
Oh, it's personal, it's public displays of affection, but what is it? Or it was like, isn't it PDA or like a, it's like a personal,
"Oh, device something?" I don't know. Yeah, a BlackBerry.
a BlackBerry, but that's like kind of image quality that we're looking at. And it's really
Oh
funny
my
because
god.
I'm like,
I have an
yeah, they
icon
do kind
story
of
I'll
look.
tell you later.
You have a what story?
An icon story.
Okay.
Somebody at
But
work told me that her niece was, like, looking at the little phone icon on the iPhone and being like, "Why does the phone have a curved bone thingy as the icon?" And it's, like, an icon for a telephone. This kid didn't know what a telephone looked like a pickup from the Ringer kind of
fucking
phone. Like, "What is this?"
Jesus.
It's like, "That's a telephone. They used to look like that." I guess they're like that's the equivalent
God.
now of, like, the old, like, Alexander Graham Bell, like, "Hello?"
Hello, hello. Operator.
Yeah.
Um,
So, icons are fun,
yeah,
and these people see them.
yes. And so you get these little pictures, and based on that, of like, they're both attractive white guys with cheekbones. Yeah, Ethan Hawke and Jude Law look similar, right? But it's like because of the
Uh,
graphics.
they're both
Um,
white, yes.
they're both white and whatever. Um, and so as all of this, like, you know, the detectives are like, well, it's this Vincent, you know, Freeman character who's an invalid, and we need to figure out who he is, and we need to find him to track down this murder. So he's like under a lot of scrutiny, and you know, you see all of his like truly incredible like sleight of hand sort of stuff of like getting blood tests drawn and having, you know, having his mouth swabbed and like all of these different things of like he is living a high stakes version of being a like party magician. And
For my next trick, I will
for my
urinate
next
in this cup.
truly. And then
"Wow!"
so
said all the kids watching.
oh my god, all these people watching, and the doctor
All
was
the
like, "Nice dick, son."
Nice
Um,
nice penis. They don't make them like that anymore. Yours is a you
they
got a
sure don't.
huge schlong, poor boy. Oh,
But
man.
basically, during this time,
Way to
there's
go,
like some
Doctor Pervert.
way to go, Dr. Berber. During this whole thing, there's like a love story developing between Uma Thurman's character and Ethan Hawke's character.
Developing is a strong word for it. I would say that it's happening. Developing
It's
implies that there's an
occurring.
arc to it. Yeah, that there's, like, growth, and I feel like they are looking at each other one moment being like, "Hmm, you are person in the office," and then it's like, "Let's date and bone."
And let's have literally one of the worst on-screen kisses I've ever seen in a film.
Yeah, so
It
at some point, the detectives are on to them, or they've somehow tracked them to this fucking ballroom, which is we gotta talk about the locations too, because I love the
Oh, I have
places they
some
found to
facts.
film. Ooh, some
I have some
facts?
facts. Yeah,
Yeah.
the exterior of Gattaca,
Mhm.
of the building, was
Yeah.
filmed at the Marin County Civic Center in Northern California.
Oh, Marin Count that's cool.
Yeah.
And then the
It
other
was
place.
designed it was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, which I did not know.
Oh, no shit. So it's got that,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, they're clearly going for kind of like a deco thing going on here, and it seemed like they picked a lot of buildings of the same design. Yeah, the place that she goes, there's a moment earlier on when I don't know what this place is in the context of the movie, but it's like women and men too, but mostly women are like coming up to this counter with like little pieces
Oh,
of hair,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
person behind, and they test genetic material that they like hairs and stuff,
It's like a
and they're like,
dating
you
service.
got a good one. It's like, is this just an accepted thing in society that like women and men steal like little follicles of hair from people they're interested in, and are like, ooh, are they a good match? Like, that's so fucking
I
weird.
mean, isn't it the same kind of thing of, like, flipping through, like, Tinder or Hinge or something and only
I
judging
suppose
people
it's
based
more
on how they
accurate than
look?
looking at a picture, yeah. Oh, but
Yeah.
anyway, the building that Uma Thurman walks out of is, I'm dead certain is like the LA Forum. So it's like that one is another
Oh, it
real.
is. Yeah.
Mhm. We were
It's like
watching
the
it and we're like,
Sepulveda
wait, that looks
Dam.
super fucking like something I can recognize. I brought this all up because at that date scene that we were talking about before the kiss happens, they're in like a church, I think, and then but it's been converted into a restaurant.
Something.
I don't
It's
know.
like a 1940s, 50s kinda, like, dance hall sort of thing with, like, a
Hmm.
band playing and, like, Uma
Yeah,
Thurman in one of her billions of seemingly billions of evening dresses that this
I will.
fucking
I will
space
give.
engineer owns.
I will give this movie props for having pretty cool production design. Although I think even more than production design, I would give a lot of. I mean, they no production design did a good job because they're clearly going for a art deco 40s sort of like look, and there's definitely a lot of like all, I mean, they're also going for, they have a lot of like 40s furniture kind of, they're clearly going for like
Yeah,
a 40s noir vibe, and they do a lot with the props and things I noticed in the background. But like, I gotta call out the locations people who like found these
dude,
locations,
yes.
who found them, and like, and who probably had to do all the work of getting the permits to film in these places, and it's
Seriously.
like they did a great like because looking at them, I was like, these have to be real exteriors and some of the interiors, because like you wouldn't like for a film set, you would not like lay piles of concrete to like get it, like there's
No.
just no time. Most
Well,
of the places had to be real places. So that's
and
cool that it
they
was Marin County, the Forum, and a couple other places.
and there's, like, the Sepulveda Dam is part of
Hmm.
it. There's, the solar panels is actually a solar panel field in, like, Arizona.
Oh yeah, I
There's some
figured.
locations in, like, Encino, around Like, so it's kind of mostly
Oh
was filmed on
yeah,
location.
the bridge that they go under when they're doing the little testing is the Second Street Bridge in downtown LA, which was funny
Yes.
because they get out of there and then she's like, cross the street, and now they're in solar panels. And then when you get the wide shot of them in the solar panel fields, I'm like, wait, where is the giant highway that they had to cross like earlier that morning? Like, it was
Yes.
funny.
I mean, and I can also just say, like, my eyesight is not, like, that bad, but I did lose my glasses earlier today, and I had to write all of my notes in at least 30-point font so I could see it. So I was like, "Wow, this is my nightmare of, like, not having my glasses." And, like, hi, this thing that kind of depends on you being able to gauge spatial distance between an oncoming car and your very squishy human body,
Yeah.
you
I'm
can't
glad
see
they
it.
call
Like,
I'm glad that they called it out in the next scene, because I was like, so he crossed, so he's like crossing a highway and could potentially die running into with a car running into him, because this girl who kind of likes him, like he's going to he just like tricked his way out of like a genetic test in this car. He's going to jeopardize his life's goal of going to he plays this like a person who's never had pussy before. He's like must have never
I
slept with
mean,
a woman, which makes sense.
he
He's been like a
yes.
space nerd his whole life, right? He's just like,
It
well, I
is
I guess I better follow the lady and potentially jeopardize everything I've worked fucking 15 years of my life for.
hey,
And
man,
they go across the street to see these. It's like, come and see the great view. But he's gonna jeopardize. He can't see the view. He lost his contacts. He can't see shit. So I'm glad
I
they called
mean,
that out, because I was like, wait, he's doing this to see a beautiful view that he can't see. Like, but then they're like, oh yeah, it is very blurry. He can't actually see it.
guess what, man? You can't, can't put that pussy on a pedestal. It's
Mm-mm.
just
Nope.
But yeah, so they do this whole thing. They have this kind of crazy like love story. Um, at this point, like the investigation is kind of heating up, and we get, this the detective who's not Alan Alda is like, it's this guy Jerome, like it's him, it's this whatever, he's the guy that killed him or whatever.
Hmm.
And so he goes to actual Jerome, Jude Law's house, and Jude Law does some incredible upper body acting in this. He like pulls his ass up, his like paralyzed legs, pulls himself up this like massive spiral staircase
Hmm.
to like talk to this detective, and again, just Jude Law is his acting in this is so good. It's just so good. He's such a charming, delightful person to have on screen.
This was one of the
Um,
first moments in the movie where I like felt something. I was like, "Ooh,
yes.
I'm excited! I can like, I want to know if he makes it up the staircase."
Yeah, it's like very like high stakes, like, oh, the director's on his or the detective's on his way over, and like you have to
Hmm.
pretend to be me, and Uma Thurman kind of has to also pretend that that's her boyfriend, and even though she's never seen this man before, so it's like high stakes. But then at that point is when that detective is like called off, like, we got the guy. It's the person with a motive, with means, motive, and opportunity to have actually killed the director
Yeah, it was like the manager of the space work that the people in the big space office are doing. He's like, "Good
to
job,
get
your
to
numbers are
space.
great." And he was like, "The mission director was going to cancel the mission, and I don't like that
and,
because
and
I
I
am
killed him.
numbers man." Ha ha ha.
um, so yeah, so then we kind of are like, okay, cool, everything's done. Like Vincent's gonna go to space now. What's that though? The other investigator, who's not Alan Alda, is
Bum bum
Vincent's
bum.
brother. It's his
Whoa.
brother.
This is why
What?
they
Oh
cast them
fuck.
as different people as teenagers. Now we have a
Yes.
cool reveal where it's like, oh, the genetically superior brother is the detective investigating him.
Yeah, and it's like, I know exactly who you are, and like you'll never go to space because like you suck and blah. And then their only way of having a like reasonable conversation about this, or in any way coming to any sort of middle ground, anything, is to jump into the ocean during
Completely
the
naked.
completely naked in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
And I was watching this scene, and it was like, oh, because as kids, it used to be like we would swim out as far, and Vincent would always give up, and like I wouldn't ever, blah, whatever.
Right.
And I
You're
just
adults.
in this scene, I was like, one, you are adults with human words and access to emotions. But never mind, we'll get rid of
Yes.
that.
But that's
Obviously,
not
it's
very
not
visual, and film
that's
is a
not very
visual
visual.
medium.
Secondarily, I was like, don't get in the fucking water, you lunatics. I was like, anybody that has grown up anywhere near the Northern California coastline, the one rule is don't get in the water because there are these things called riptides and you will die. Like, don't get in the water. Just don't get in the water. Like, especially when there's a massive storm. Also, I was like, boys are so dumb. Vincent, no wonder you had a 33-year life expectancy. You're gonna go fucking kill yourself in the middle of a goddamn ocean like a ding dong.
Always
Like, and
challenging his brother. That's what his life expectancy was based on.
I was like, good God, you're both dumb. And also, Vincent, you still have a heart problem. You still can't see anything.
Yeah.
None
But
of
he's
that
gonna
has
push
changed.
himself in the middle of the ocean because you can't.
Yeah, obviously.
Honestly,
Um,
though, that water looked kind of warm to me. I was like, there's all this
it
steam
did.
coming off of it. I was like, that seems pretty nice. I'd hang out in that ocean, like in all the close-ups.
Yeah,
Like they must have filmed this in a heated pool because that looks pretty okay.
yes. Because like
I'm sure they were trying to get it to look like fog, but to me, it just looked like a
it
sauna.
did look like a really nice warm bath.
Yeah,
Uh, and then I don't actually remember like what happens as the result of that. Like Vincent saves
he's
his brother, and it's this
he
whole
saves his
thing.
brother, and then he's like, I guess he like gets his brother's approval. He's like, you can go to space or something. I don't know. He's like,
It's
don't
not
worry about
really,
it.
it's pretty much not important because at this point now, because Vincent has been cleared of all suspicion of murder, it's like, you're good to go to space. And so he, in his like double breasted suit, like not a spacesuit, not technical attire,
Mm-mm.
just
Yeah.
a suit like you would wear to an office. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, I'm going to go to space and fulfill my dreams of space for unknown purpose on Titan.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like,
I'm
oh
going to
shit,
do space thing on
I'm going to do
whatever.
space thing
Yeah.
on space thing. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, oh shit, right before you get on the spaceship, there's one last little genetic screening that you have to make sure.
It's
'Cause, like,
a P test is
it's a
what it
pee
is.
test. And then it's like,
Fuck.
just to
I
make
didn't bring my
sure.
pee bag today. Fuck.
Yeah. He's like, the one day I don't have a piss test, I don't have pee on me. God damn it. But then who is it? Who is it? It's fucking pervert doctor.
Dr.
Fucking pervert
Pervert,
doctor.
back for
Dr.
more.
Pervert is like he's
He
talking
takes the sample.
he takes a sample and he's talking to Vincent and is like, "Hey, I really respect what you've done and I really respect the lengths you've gone to and you're an inspiration. Like my son wants to be an astronaut. I tell him about you and
Mhm.
all of this stuff and you're kind of like, why is he talking about this?" Then the doctor turns the screen around and it shows like your
His
Vince
result, it's him as
his
Vincent,
result.
not him as
It's his
Jerome. Like, oh,
exactly.
found out.
And then the doctor basically, who again, this man does not show great critical thinking and like medical knowledge in his day-to-day job because he's like, hey, look, man, I know who you are. I know you're not really Jerome, but like you're an inspiration to me. So even though your body is fucked up and you probably should not be in space, guess what? And he like turns it around and he like makes it be Jerome
Yeah.
instead
And
so
guess
that
the
he
re
can go to
and
space.
and guess what? Here's the and he always knew. Why did he
Oh,
know?
oh, why did
Because
he know?
Jerome is right-handed and Vincent has always held his penis with his left hand. He's known the whole time because he's just looking at his dick every time he takes
Yes.
a pee test. I was like, oh my god, they brought the dick joke back around. It's like the most integral part of the story. I can't believe this. I was
That's
like,
what I mean.
the
I'm
dick joke is totally integral to the plot.
like,
Like, oh my
imagine
god.
how many
I love
other
your big fucking poor person, huge schlongy dick that you hold with your left hand, you fucking invalid, you fucking genetically inferior person who's an inspiration.
it's
I died. I was like,
it's insane.
bravo.
Just like bringing that back around, I was like, how many other sci-fi films hinge on a dick joke? It's great. But so also importantly, before Vincent leaves for space, Jerome is like, hey, we kind of learned through Jerome's character arc, Jude Law's character, through his character arc, like he is not a happy person. The car accident was him trying to commit suicide. He's never
Mhm.
been really happy and he's never felt like he can fulfill and live up to this like insane kind of, guillotine over his neck of perfection basically. And so he's kind of always not wanted to be alive. So then before Vincent goes to space, Jerome is like, "Hey, I love you," or whatever version of that is like not gay. Um, and the way that he shows that is he shows Vincent like, "Hey, you have enough of me now to be Jerome for the rest of your life." And I was like, wow, the only time that giving someone a refrigerator full of piss and blood is like a kind, sweet friendship gesture. Because it's basically just like, here's
You know,
enough pee and blood to sustain this ruse for the rest of your life.
yeah, forever. I would argue that there's another good real world example of that, like when David Bowie and Jimmy Page were both practicing chaos magic, and David Bowie was in a huge
Yes.
drug-fueled paranoia spiral and was convinced that Jimmy Page was a black wizard who was trying to kill him. And Jimmy Page is like, look, my buddy, my best friend, David Bowie, here's a giant jar of my piss to keep with you
Yes.
so you can do chaos magic on me anytime you want. I'm not out to get you. It's like,
It is
aw, friends.
You know, what's a little pee between your friend who's in a cocaine-induced psychosis?
Nothing like it.
Nothing like it.
That's friendship, if you ask me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would pee in a cup for my friends, absolutely.
Totally. Yeah, I'd
For
give
sure.
I'd give a 2 lifetime supply of my piss and blood to a friend.
Yes,
Okay, also at the end of this movie, like this is where the whole thing like took a very dramatic turn for me, is like Jude Law incinerates himself at the end. It's like,
so
what?
dramatic.
What the fuck? This movie's so much drama.
I
Ethan
literally
Hawke's like, I got everything I ever wanted. I'm going to space. And Jude Law's like, I'm burning myself to death. Like, what? Because you came in second place in like a swimming competition when you were younger?
I don't
Like,
get it.
what the fuck?
I don't get it. It's just, it is the most dramatic thing he could have done. And it's like, I'm doing this selflessly. And he like incinerates himself because he's like eradicating himself from the
Right.
world entirely,
Yeah.
right? Like he's eradicating all of his DNA. But I'm also like, my dude, what?
It's a weird message to end on.
It's a
It's
weird
like,
fucking message to
this
end on.
person who is like, who has a different, but it's not complimentary. He has a different problem than Vincent. They even say it in the voiceover, right? Like his problem is like the burden of perfection, but it's
Right.
like, but like he never gets the chance to learn how to deal with being imperfect, or learn how to let that become a part of his character, to overcome the
Yeah.
perfectionism of being a genetically quote unquote superior person who has a handicap. Like, I don't know. Yeah, part of me is like, I get, again, this is what the movie is. It's like, it's a big puzzle piece with some interesting concepts, and like the cause and effect, causality all kind of makes sense, and there are some interesting themes woven throughout, but it also like feels like it's a little calculated. Like it feels like a screenwriter's puzzle problem to like get all the pieces, and it's like, oh, it would make sense for my story for him to immolate himself and like erase all the evidence of his genetic material, and it kind of makes sense for his character because he was never very happy. But it like, it's such a I don't know, to me it was such a strange turn, and like thematically, message wise, I guess you could argue that it's saying like everybody is doomed in this world where genetic perfection is the norm. So it's like the genetically perfect and the genetically imperfect both suffer. Like the genetically imperfect character has to get off the world, like go into literal space to like be able to feel like they have any kind of hope of survival, and the genetically perfect person who is handicapped has no way to be a human being in the way that they would consider fulfilling on the earth anymore, so I guess that's just kind of a fucking downer. Like,
It's a
what
pretty
a
downer, and I
downer.
mean, it's a downer. It's kind of this like twin 1-2 punch of this super downer of like, I can't exist on the world if I can't be perfect, I should not exist on this world, while also being like, oh, you're greater than the sum of your parts, and your genetics or whatever are only one part of who you are, and etc. and so on. But it like ends on a weird note. So that's Gattaca.
That's Gattaca, baby.
Maybe I have some like kind of overarching thoughts and takeaways
Yeah,
that I wanted
yeah,
to
hit
talk
me.
about.
Yeah, tell me
So
what your thoughts were. At the very beginning, I really liked that there was a bunch of like puns or names that they had for people who were
yes,
born naturally, like uteros or what they call them,
yes,
babies of faith. And there was one that I can't remember, but uh, it was like a
degenerates,
pun with gene in the middle. It was like
degene,
degenerate.
degenerates.
I was like, oh my god, you guys, come on, get out of here.
It's one of those jokes that works really well on paper and sounds real stupid when you say it.
Out loud,
Um,
yeah. So
so
yeah, tell
this
me about some of your thoughts and takeaways.
so this film coming out in 1997, I thought was really interesting because it is that twin. It has a really strong nostalgia for like the 40s and 50s in the
Mhm,
visuals, in the sort of pre-present day world or whatever. Like it has a lot of that nostalgia that I think was very common in the 90s of having nostalgia for the 40s and 50s.
mhm,
Um, Mixed with this really what I can only expect was a societal anxiety
mhm,
about scientific advancement, specifically in the realm of DNA, because DNA was so it was first used to I looked this up. It was first used to solve a crime in the UK in 1986 because
mm,
this guy Alec Jeffreys, who was a geneticist, a British geneticist, basically was the first person to like I guess make a link between linking crime scene evidence to a particular person's DNA in 1984, as well as this film in US history came out not long after the O.J. Simpson trial, which was one of the
mm.
first big
Uses of genetic. Mhm,
uses of DNA evidence being like the backbone of
mhm.
a prosecution and an
Yeah,
argument. So kind of just like that fear of what does being able to pinpoint exactly who someone is and being able to, uncode someone's genetic lineage or whatever, what does
yep,
that mean? Like what
mhm,
what will happen? What could happen, right? So that's kind of the like cool sci-fi aspect of it of like sci-fi so often plays on cultural and societal fears and sort of
mhm. Yeah,
takes it
and the
to the next step.
technology of the moment and
Yeah, and
extrapolating where
technology.
that could go in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. And it made me wonder, this movie made me wonder about kind of the collective unconscious awareness slash hangover of early 20th century eugenics in the United States that then
Mhm,
influenced the Nazis and um, all of their fun experiments.
mhm,
And sort of that there was already this sort of semi-living memory of forcible sterilization of black people, of mentally handicapped people, physically handicapped people. There was this like forced sterilization and
Jewish
eugenics
people, yeah.
movement. Jewish, but well, like that was all in the United States that all
Mhm, oh,
started,
mhm,
and in the like teens and 20s, that's where we get like phrenology and all of that like totally
yeah,
bullshit science.
mhm,
Essentially being like trying to prove that white people are superior, um, and that
yeah,
we can kind of engineer this eugenic idea of creating a
mhm,
perfect society. And then the Nazis took that and were like, yes, us too, it came from
right,
us, everybody.
yeah,
But kind of having
well,
all of
Henry
those
Ford.
Henry Ford baby, and but just sort of that in 1997, that was all 40 to 60 years ago. So it was somewhat in like semi living memory. So I always am like, oh, that's a really interesting, just like cultural touch point of that fear, right? Of, hey, we can now do
Yeah,
genetic testing. Hey, we can now do this. It's like, oh my God, does that mean? we're going to go back to a eugenic
Yeah,
society.
totally. Yeah, it's
Um,
worthy of being scared of because that would not be
yeah,
great.
no, for sure, and it's and and I think too when you get into like talking about disability activism and kind of deconstructing ableism, that is one of those big things of like what do you gain versus what do you lose? Like you lose these people in your society, and you lose the types of um, I don't know, variation and uniqueness and um,
Being
interest.
imperfect is what gives humanity its flavor. Okay, we lagged, but I think we caught up.
We did, we did. But
Lag.
yeah, it's
Here's
an
to the
interesting.
imperfect. Here's to
Here's
the
the
here's down with the fascist perfectionists. Here's to the people
yes,
who make
we're
life worth
here. We're
living
here for the
because they
imperfectness.
don't
Um,
conform to
I also
all of the normal things of life.
fuck them all. So I also like I said earlier, I do kind of wish that there hadn't been a romantic arc, and I wish that the heart, like the emotional heart of this film, had been Vincent and Jerome's relationship because it is designed as a purely exploitative relationship, right? Vincent pays money to Jerome. Jerome provides his genetics. It is an intrinsically exploitative relationship, but they seem to actually really like each other, and they seem to actually have a certain amount of like love and camaraderie and friendship and commonality
Mm.
between them. And like I wish that had been the emotional center of the film instead of this like
Yeah, throwing in this
romantic
kind of
angle.
romantic thing that feels a little
Yeah.
flat and like it doesn't add so much.
Well, and it also does make sense though in the 90s because it's like depictions of male friendship. I mean, I feel like The Lord of the Rings was such a watershed moment just in terms of seeing those kinds of deep male bond, those deep male friendships being the emotional heart of a like on screen, right? Where it's
Yeah,
not
never
about
thought about
romance,
that,
it's
but yeah.
like it was such a watershed moment in that way, and like I don't think that a film in 1997 that was like the emotional core of this film is two men who are not romantically involved. They have this really complex and complicated beautiful relationship. Like that was not going to get through a studio system. Like I don't think
You
it
could
would.
argue that Shawshank Redemption did that.
Shawshank Redemption did it too. You're correct. You're absolutely correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's just like any fucking trend in Hollywood. It's like, everybody thinks that a thing is not going to sell or isn't right for an audience, or it's not, you can't do that until somebody does do it. And then it's like, oh, they did it because they're artists and they're actually creative and they come up with
Yeah.
solutions to problems of novel problems that people thought couldn't be solved. It's
Yeah,
just
exactly. And I think like I did like this film. Like it's a good movie. Um, but I think those kind of aspects of certain characters felt kind of flat, certain relationships and motivations weren't really there. I wanted a little bit more of the why behind things. Um,
word.
and yeah, I will say though, again, like this being a very high concept film, this is a very high
Right.
concept story that is not also coming from existing source material, like something like, Blade Runner or The Martian, these other sort of futuristic slash dystopian stories that have books or
Yeah.
short stories
I
or other things that they're
I
pulling from. Like
I
I give a
totally
lot of
appreciate
props.
a science fiction film that any film really that it exists first only as a screenplay. It's not, yeah, from
Yeah,
anything else.
absolutely.
It's
And like,
made to be on the screen. That's pretty cool.
yeah. And it's, and I think for all of these kind of like the writing was a little clunky or the characters arcs weren't quite believable or there were certain weird motivations or some of those jigsaw pieces didn't maybe quite match up. I still think like for a high concept sci-fi film from a first time writer director, this is very impressive. Um, this is like a very, very impressive thing to have come to fruition. Mostly, I mean, hopefully, I would hope, seemingly like with the concept very much intact through the
Mhm.
whole like meat grinder of a studio system.
Totally, yeah. Um, for my thoughts and takeaways, I think I will do a dramatic reading of as you described them in our notes, my notes that read like an E. Cummings poem. So
It really does. It was quite delightful to read them.
yeah, I'm doing them on my phone and it's like much easier to just hit enter. And sometimes I hit enter at the wrong time by accident and then it just makes a whole new. So anyway, yeah.
I love.
So here is a dramatic reading of my thoughts and takeaways. This is a good script, but the movie lacks a bit of soul. It's a bit by the numbers, kind of very dramatic. I think this is going for an almost Brazil vibe, but it doesn't quite have the balls to go there visually. Look, it's not bad. I like the vibe, but it's hard to make a movie that is set entirely in a downtrodden, emotionless universe. Like THX 1138, you have to have some breakdown moments. Anyway,
I
and scene.
I thank you so much for dramatically reading your notes because I loved reading your notes. I was like, I don't know if he's doing this on purpose or
A lot of
like
my writing tends to be like that. I just prefer seeing things in digestible chunks. It's easier for me to parse it out that way.
that makes sense. Um, yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. I think that it is almost going for Brazil-like vibes. It's um, a lot of the themes are there in terms of like self-erasure for societal acceptance and the burden of perfection
Mhm.
and
A society
overcoming.
that is kind of like somewhat fascistic or in its sort of like uh emotionless in its core. It's all about
Yeah,
business. It's all about
yeah,
the bottom line. It's about being mission and purpose driven, and there is no
yeah,
room for like passion and
yeah,
romance and creativity and stuff like that. It's all very
yeah.
sterile. Sterile is the word I would use
Sterile is
for
the
it.
word. Yes, and it
Mhm.
is it has all of that stuff. But now I do think it's time that we've gotten to the most important part of our podcast, which is
Tambok na tiksi. Tambok, 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 tambok na tiksi.
vibe check.
Vibe check.
So
What's the deal with the
I
vibes? What you thinking?
Yes, so for everybody listening perhaps for the first time, Evan and I do not rate these films on a five-star system or anything like that. We review it based on how are the vibes and how is the story. Those are the two components that we look for. So to me, the vibe was good. Like I made a note that I was like, I wish I could see what this film would have looked like if Denis Villeneuve had made it,
Yeah,
and just like
100%.
got
Mhm.
like because I do think you're right. It goes right up to the line of having like exquisite vibes and it doesn't
Mhm.
have like just commit to the vibe and just like
Mhm.
fucking go all in. Go
It's
all
got
in with the
all
vibe.
it's got all the things to make the vibes be good. It's got the Art Deco stylings, the kind of like, what's it even better? Like it does have deco flavors, but is it also kind of like, I guess it's not exactly mid-century modern. They have that 40s
It's
flair to
40s.
the look
It's
of
40s,
everything,
which
you know.
is
They have everything. It's like, which is a vibe. It's got its sort of
yeah.
situation going on. It's got it's got uh moments of brooding characters, which is always great for vibes.
It's like noir, I think, is the vibe. So,
Yeah.
like,
But it
40s noir is the vibe it's kind of going for, but it
mhm,
like 1940s, like, dystopian future vibes, which is a
mhm.
great vibe, by the way.
Yeah,
Yes, please, and thank you.
to aim at, yes.
But it doesn't quite cross the finish line on the, like, gut punch execution, of just being like, "Oh, it's a fucking
Mhm.
good vibe."
Yeah,
Or like, "Oh, it was, like, really great." It's just, like, good vibes to me, like, just good. Like, it's good.
totally.
It's
Yeah.
not amazing, it's not transcendent, it's just, like, it's good. They're good vibes. What do you
Yeah,
think?
that's great. Um, well, I feel like, after that last one, I feel like I think I'm gonna do another dramatic reading of my thoughts. I think I put it
Please,
pretty
please,
succinctly.
please,
This
please, please, please.
this is a little poem I wrote in a slightly drunken state watching the end of Gattaca last night. That's called Vibes. You know what? This seems like it would be all vibes, but vibes implies vibrations, important character moments, feelings. And this movie is paradoxically all story, all drama, no vibes. Man, those are my thoughts.
Very good. I love that.
I just feel like they were trying to let the production design do a lot of the heavy lifting
Yes.
and in setting the tone of what was going on, but like there's so many spinning wheels of the jigsaw puzzle of this. It
Yeah.
feels like there was so much attention paid to making sure that the pieces fit together,
Mm.
as far as like the story went. And also it's so fucking dramatic. Just these people, they're just like typing on their keyboard, and the 90s soundtrack is like
Oh, man.
like, such a fucking shut up, chill out.
Yeah, the soundtrack, the score and the soundtrack is, like, hitting you in the face with drama. Yeah, I would say for me, I think final score for me is, like, actually, like, meh vibes and a good story.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
meh vi like, they're
for a
there, but
first
it
for a
could be more
first
fully
screenplay, this is
realized,
good. Like all of
and like,
all
the
the cause and
characters that
effect
inhabit
are
the world.
there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
meh
just
vibes,
something
good
about the
story.
execution. It's not
That's my
bad, but
thing.
yeah, it feels a little soulless. It feels a little like it's lacking, which is why I wish Jude Law was more in the movie, because he really
Oh,
has the chutzpah
I
to
love
sort of
him.
bring something of like,
And
yeah, I care.
I
I've
think
got
this
emotions.
I got emotions, motherfuckers. I think this is around the same time. I think Jude Law either this same year or very soon after it did The Talented Mr. Ripley, which also is like
Mhm.
that's a fantastic film that he is also like great in. But it was like almost a slightly similar vibe of like, ooh, spoiled like rich kid, but
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
really compelling and interesting to watch and you just like watching him.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's Gattaca.
So wait, did you say what your vibe check was? Did you
Oh, I feel like I said all story, all
Oh,
drama, no vibes,
got it, got
man.
it. All vibes, all stories. Got it. Sorry. I'm sorry. I was poetry blind.
Yes.
Um,
You're just
yeah, so
wrapped up
that's
in the wordsmithery.
yes. I was transported by
Well,
your
thank
by your
you.
lyricism. So That's Gattaca,
Yeah,
everybody.
you
Thank
were
you so
wrapped
much for
up
listening.
you were wrapped up the same way that, Dr. Pervert was as he was looking at Ethan Hawke's giant schlong in his left hand for all those
I couldn't
years.
focus. I couldn't focus on anything else
Yeah,
at all.
I wouldn't be able to
Um,
either. What a perfect specimen. Don't be like Dr.
but
Pervert, everybody. Go
please don't be
watch a
like Dr.
movie.
Pervert.
Yeah.
Go watch a movie, maybe with your sibling. That would be really fun.
Yeah, it'd be
Um,
sweet of you and them.
so thank you so much for listening, everybody. Thanks for listening to our episode on Gattaca and hearing our thoughts and takeaways. You can find us on things like Instagram and YouTube, which are at Brother Sibling Movie. And you can email us your thoughts or takeaways yourselves, or thoughts on films,
Constructive
or
criticism
suggestions,
or
constructive
angry
criticism.
mob mentality or conspiracy theories. Send
Yes,
us.
anything at all. Send it
Yeah.
all into us. And that's at brothersiblingmovie at
Death threats?
gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't send us death threats. I will
Yeah,
be
but
very upset.
I'd rather
I
not.
would I would super love it if you didn't do that.
Yeah.
But we would love that. You can leave comments and follow us on Spotify. And Evan, where can the good people find you on the internet?
You can find me. All my handles are Art of Evan K. That's Instagram, YouTube. I'm not on Twitter or whatever we're calling it now, but that's basically it. Get on my website, artofevank.com. Check it out. And follow me on LetterBoxd, and you can read my reviews of these movies as we watch them. And yeah, it'd be fun. And see what I have to say about
Awesome.
Gattaca in
Love
my
it. Yes.
E.E. Cummings-esque poetic way.
I think you should just take your notes and that should be your letterbox.
It's not bad, actually. Yeah, it's like copy
That's
paste.
fantastic. Just this. You can find me on Instagram at Lawn Daddy Lives Here. That's lawn with underscores between the words, lawn underscore whatever it is. At Lawn Daddy Lives Here. And I think that might be it.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond just
We
saying,
talked about another science fiction movie from the 90s. So what
we
more
did
do you
it,
want from
y'all.
us? Stop asking so much of us. We're doing our best.
Stop demanding.
Nobody, yeah, nobody's
Stop
being very
demanding
demanding.
perfection from us. No one's being demanding. All right,
No one
cool.
asked for
Well,
this.
it's great talking to you, buddy. No
Great
one
talking to
asked
you
for
too, Sib.
this. Literally no
Mm-mm.
one.
Yeah. People
Okay.
actively
I
told
love
us
you very
not to do it.
much.
I love you
It's
too.
true.
Have a great time in the great, great state of Wisconsin. I will
I will.
continue living my life and being awesome out here in California.
Fuck yeah, buddy. All right. Bye.